Alright, if you're stuck on number 4, very simple. First thing I told you is you should always look at the whole numbers first before you get to the fractions, because the whole numbers are so much easier to find the constant. So on the top is your x, the bottom is your y. So if you look here, okay, 3 times 3 gives me 9. And here, 2 times 2 gives me 4. So that means, obviously, they're not the same constant proportionality. So you wouldn't even have to do this part. You literally can just look at the whole numbers. Now, for part B on the bottom, what you have is 3 times 2 gives you 6. So the constant for this ratio is 6. Now, if you look at the others, both of these are fractions. So there's 2 ways that you could go about it. I know that the constant proportionality here is 2, because 3 times 2 gives me 6. If this table is proportional, all of them would have to have a constant proportionality of 2. So what you would have to do is, divide your fractions. So let's say the first ratio, what you have is, here is x, this is y, and in the table, the first ratio you have is 2/3 and 2, and then the second one is 2.5 and 5, and then the last one, like I said, was 3 and 6. And so what you need to figure out, okay, so I know that 3 times 2 is going to give me 6, which means that the rest of them also have to have a constant of 6. Okay, so if I look at 2/3 and 2, there's 2 ways I could do this. I could either multiply by 2 and see, does 2/3 times 2 give me 2? Or we could divide the fractions. Remember, your constant is always y over x, right? So for example, these 2 ratios, my y is 6, my 3 is x, which means it's 2, because proportional relationships have the same ratio. So what I could do is I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 2 divided by 2/3, right? Now, dividing a whole number with a fraction is a little bit more difficult. That means it's 2 divided by 2/3. And what you do here is keep the first number. Remember, change this to multiplication, and you flip. And so what that gives me is 2 is the same as 2 over 1. That gives me 6 divided by 2, because 2 times 3 is 6, 1 times 2 is 2, and you get 3. So here, for the last ratio, the constant is 2. Here, the last ratio, the constant is actually 3. So that's one way to go about it. Or you could have just done 2/3 times 2, and that actually gives me 4/3, not 2, which means that obviously this table is not proportional. So it's easy to just go one by one and try them out first. And then for the last one, you have the whole numbers, right? 3 times what gives me 12? Well, that's 3 times 4. And then you're going to see, okay, well, does a constant of 4 also work for these 2 ratios as well?